My name is Attorney Cyrus Tabibnia. The primary aspects of my law firm focus upon criminal defense law and in particular sex crimes. If you've been charged with a sex crime, time is of the essence. Call the Tabibnia Law Firm. We offer a free 1-hour consultation during which we will patiently listen to your concerns, explain the process to you, and communicate what we will do to affect a positive outcome for your case. If you're convicted of a crime, you can obviously potentially be incarcerated. You can have significant fines leveled against you. Some cases require sex registration, which will make employment as well as housing very difficult for the rest of that person's life. The prosecution very often have a constituency to keep happy. And very often it's not necessarily in their interest to dismiss the charges because it could look potentially bad for them. So there's a lot of politics involved as well, and I think you do need some time as an attorney to really start understanding that. We've had some tremendous results at the firm. When you work with your clients as a team, and when the client believes in you, you can actually do some things that some attorneys might think are not so likely. But we have had very unlikely results, positive unlikely results. First of all, let's be clear that a lot of people are not guilty. My experience as an attorney is as follows. There are a good deal of people who are guilty of some crime, and there are many who actually are not guilty. Very often people who even are guilty of some crime are overcharged by the prosecution, and a punishment is pursued that does not befit the crime. I also have cases where another crime entirely is being charged against the client. I'll give you an example. My client was being charged with pimping and pandering of a minor. An undercover agent claiming to be an underage girl came into contact with my client. My client's conduct very clearly suggested he was interested in a potentially sexual relationship for himself with someone who initially didn't even seem to be underage. But the undercover police officer kept changing the subject to pimping and pandering, taunting my client, till finally my client said, "Okay, I'll be your daddy. I'll hook you up with some people." So they ended up arresting him for pimping and pandering an underage girl.
I guess I had never been arrested before, so I didn't know what to kind of prepare for, what to expect.
And we made it very clear that this is a case of entrapment, that we would take it to trial, that they would never in a million years be able to convict him of pimping and pandering a minor, which required several years in prison, mind you.
You're looking at a long time in prison, and that's not even to start considering the family issues that come out of that, the registering as a sex offender for the rest of your life, the job that you're going to lose and probably never get hired again.
The first and most important thing, inevitably, is to avoid or at least reduce the risks and the amount of incarceration that they face. Because you have to understand, when somebody's facing incarceration, it doesn't just affect them. It would affect potentially their wife, children, parents. Sex crimes create a lot of different issues. They create a lot of stigma, a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety. And now, while technically that's not necessarily the attorney's responsibility, we do deal with that. We do stick with our clients, help them through it. Try to present a positive outlook, because very often there's a silver lining there.
My wife definitely would have divorced me, so basically, everything was at stake for me, and a lot of the attorneys I spoke to just didn't seem like they listened to enough of, like, it's almost like they didn't even believe me. Like this, a lot of people say they're innocent, but not even the attorneys believe them, so they just kind of work out a plea bargain. So you got to be careful. And so I'm really blessed that I found Cyrus, because he not only believed me, but he actually proved to the prosecutors and to the judge that I was entrapped.
And I think that's an example of sometimes prosecution taking things too far. Ultimately, they relented. They admitted that the case should not have been filed as pimping and pandering, but as a solicitation case. Not only did he not get any prison time, I got him a diversion program. A diversion program is, if you do certain classes, the case will be completely dismissed as though it never even existed.
I got a second chance, and that's all thanks to Cyrus. So yeah, I definitely think that a good lawyer, a great lawyer, is key to when you're protecting your freedom. You know, don't gamble with it. You got to go with somebody that has a good reputation, and above all, that's somebody that's going to listen to you and work with you. You know, let's say, because I did. You know, I was guilty of solicitation, but not pimping and pandering of a minor. So Cyrus aggressively defended me and essentially got those charges thrown out, which doesn't happen a lot. You know, as soon as there's minors involved, and it gets pretty serious. So
It's potentially like poker. Sometimes it's a game of chicken, who gets scared first. I did have a case where my client had been charged, and the prior attorney had gotten him an offer of 10 years in prison, which I felt was unjustified and was unduly harsh. But there was evidence that made the case too dangerous to take to trial, because at trial he could have gotten a lot more than 10 years. The prosecutor, it seemed to me, was basing his strategy on the fact that we didn't want to take the case to trial, that it was too risky, too dangerous, and therefore he was being rather inflexible with the negotiations. They were sticking to 10 years. So I decided to turn that around on them. I said, all right, we have no problem taking this to trial. I'll take it to trial. I'll even work the case pro bono, meaning I'll do it for free for this gentleman because I believe potentially in his innocence. And it actually, on the day of trial, they approached me and said, okay, let's do a deal. Based upon my understanding of how that particular courthouse worked, I was able to get him 4 less years, and he would be out in 4.5 years. If the person is imprisoned, they potentially face serious dangers. I push for my client to be put in a separate facility, or at least a separate group away from the general population, so his or her life is not in danger. Every client is unique. Every circumstance is unique. And that we try to sit there, understand their life story. I will tell some clients, I want your life story. I want everything you've been through. I want to sometimes know things your family doesn't know about you. Not only does that create a certain positive and close relationship, but it can help the case. Imagine that you have a client where the evidence is convincing that they're guilty of a certain sex crime. The government or the prosecution doesn't know much about that person other than the fact that they have made allegations that this person has committed a serious crime. Humanizing that person, perhaps bringing in information about the client's past that might explain some of the behavior, can make a big difference in a case. I had one client years ago, and he had been alleged to have committed a serious crime. The sense I got in talking to him, there was more to him than met the eye. There was a story there that he wasn't telling. It was a sixth sense, if you will. Having talked to him numerous times, I pushed and I pushed. What's happened in your life? I want to know more about you. And at one point, he actually broke down and began crying in front of me. And he explained that he had lived in El Salvador. There was a civil war there, and that horrific atrocities had been committed, and that he had seen them committed to his friends in front of him. And the trauma that came with that, to say that he probably had post-traumatic stress disorder would be an understatement. He wasn't ever diagnosed, but I actually had a therapist see him and diagnose him. That story, that reality, and that psychologist report went a long way to offering him a second chance. And that's what we strive for. The reason that our law firm, my law firm, is as successful as it is that we bring a combination of experience, of diligence, of competence, of aggressiveness, and of care for our clients. We understand the system. We understand how to navigate the system. We understand how to push for our clients' interests. And I think we bring a certain holistic approach. We take our aggressiveness and our knowledge, and we combine it with a close relationship with the client, a trusting relationship with the client. And the results I've found have been oftentimes spectacular. And I think that's the mark of a great law firm and of a quality attorney. And I believe we're both of those. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.